Hey guys, Chris White here, and in this video I'm going to tell you more about all these different modalities and techniques that are out there for you to explore transpersonal and DMT states of consciousness. I will introduce you to plant medicine, psychedelics, breathwork, consciousness lights, floating, and even darkroom technologies and retreats. Lastly, I will also give you 3 tips on how to choose the right transpersonal modality for yourself, and also give you some general tips on what's the best way to start exploring transpersonal modalities and DMT states in general. Let's begin. First of all, if you're still not 100% sure yet what transpersonal and DMT states of consciousness really are, I recommend you to watch my other video first, which I will link somewhere up here, and there you find out why these transpersonal states of consciousness are so powerful, why I believe they will save this whole planet, and yeah, what it is all about. With that being said, let's start. The first group of transpersonal practices I want to introduce to you are how I call them ingestive transpersonal practices. So namely, these are psychedelics like LSD, magic mushrooms, mescaline, pure DMT, and also plant medicine, ayahuasca, iboga, San Pedro, peyote, and so on and so forth. It's just a small list, the list goes on, but these are maybe the most famous ones of these category. Ingestive transpersonal practices can be incredibly strong. Within hours, you sometimes have incredible breakthroughs. However, for many people, they're also scared of these ingestive transpersonal modalities because they believe, what's happening? I'm drugging myself. I'm like one of those hippies maybe who do all these crazy stuff, and maybe I'm losing it. Maybe I end up in a psychosis and a bad trip. Is that really what this divine path is all about, of like going inwards by taking something external? Does that really make sense? And so they have a lot of worries and a lot of doubts about these modalities. And I was the same in the beginning. I thought, isn't every medicine already inside of me? Why should I ingest anything to reach these states? The thing I found that makes all the difference here is intention. If you have the wrong intention, that you just want to use this to drug yourself to tell your friends about your crazy trips back home, then leave it. This is nothing to do recreational, to have some fun. No. This will backfire. I'm very sure, and I've seen it many, many times. But if you have the right intentions, if you use these things to achieve some form of self-realization, some form of healing, to face your true self and all your shadows, then this is not a drug at all. The interesting thing is that shamans say that this is nothing external. In the end, even psychedelics are all based on plants. And so the shamans say that these plants are a gift of the divine, of nature, to make us experience, to allow us to experience these divine things and the other side, or the spiritual side, within ourselves. So they're merely a tool to let us experience what is already within us. Anyways, if you still have some aversion to ingest anything, that's fine. I had the same in the beginning. And in fact, when I lived for many, many times with shamans in different places, I always wondered, when I had these deep transpersonal states on plant medicine, isn't it possible to have these states also without ingesting anything? And the good news is, yes, there are other modalities where you don't need to ingest anything at all. One of them is breathwork. And breathwork is absolutely incredible, because the breath is something we always have with us, so we can always work with it and we don't have to ingest anything at all. Again, this is something that is done since thousands and thousands of years. We have pranayama from the yoga traditions, we have the more modern versions, but they also all developed from the ancient breathwork modalities like holotropic breathwork, rebirthing by Leonard Orr. And we also have and find tribal and indigenous breathwork all over the world. So I learned, for example, a Tibetan lying breathwork. I learned a standing breathwork from the Shipibo tribe in the Amazon rainforest. And so there are many, many different breathworks from indigenous cultures. The basic practice of working with the breath is rumored to be more than 40,000 years old. However, in our modern society, barely anyone has really ever done breath work. We lost the connection to it. So how does breath work really work? First of all, what all these modalities have in common, they bring an increased awareness on your breath. And then secondly, most of them also use a different breathing pattern. And just by that, you can reach very deep transpersonal states of consciousness and experience DMT. Why is that? Because the breath is the only organ, the only thing in this world out there that has both the conscious element and the unconscious element. So what do I mean by that? I mean that when I tell you right now to become aware of your breath, you can feel your inhale, your exhale, you can control it, you can be conscious about your breath, you can breathe faster, you can breathe slower, you have control over that, you're conscious. However, most of the time, for example, when you sleep, you're unconscious of your breathing. It works in the back without you even thinking about it. So the breath has this amazing quality that it has both. It's like the gateway to get from the conscious to the unconscious and from the unconscious to the conscious. So it connects these two worlds of the rational and the spiritual, and is therefore the perfect modality to dive into this other world of awareness where we're usually never at. Let's continue with the next transpersonal modality, which is consciousness lights. And these are lights that use a special flickering technique to bring you into transpersonal DMT states. Again, this is thousands and thousands of years old. People were reported in ancient times to create stone wheels, and then they put holes inside of it, placed them in front of the sun, sat in front of it, and just by spinning them, created this flickering of light in front of their forehead, in front of their pineal glands. Nowadays, this is done with modern technology, but it works in the same way. These flickering patterns of light are created to open up your pineal gland, your third eye, and to make you reach transpersonal states of consciousness. I personally met the founder of the Ajna light, Guy Harriman, in Thailand last year and spent some time with him. And I experienced the Ajna consciousness light very extensively for myself. I even bought the light, traveled with it, and really did countless of sessions. And so I can tell you, these consciousness lights are definitely very powerful, because what happens when this flickering comes onto your pineal gland, it changes your brain waves. So most of the time we're in the beta state, and the beta brainwave state is this very stressed out everyday state most people are in. Now when you lie under the light, this different flickering pattern changes your brainwave state and brings you into maybe the gamma, a very deep transcendental brainwave state. And so then all these changes occur. An interesting thing is that the founder of the Ajna light, Guy Harriman, he did a study last year with monks in Thailand who meditate for years and years and years. And one of the most respected monks in all of Thailand, he said after using the light that the Ajna light takes him in a very short time to the light that he sees in his deepest meditations. And I made the same experience. The light brings you very quickly into these transcendent transpersonal states. The next transpersonal modality I want to introduce to you is floating. Floating is based on sensory deprivation. And why is that important? Because in our ordinary state of reality, we are always in our senses. If you don't listen, you talk. If you don't talk, you smell. If you don't smell something, you see something. If you don't see something, you do something. You know, so we're always in the external sense-based world. And for most people, they don't break out of this cycle of being in their senses, not even once a day sometimes, unfortunately. Transpersonal states, however, are the opposite. It's when you realize you're not your body, you're not your senses, you're not your thoughts, you're not your name. You see beyond that. You step out of your sense-based perception. And that's why sensory deprivation is so very powerful. So what does sensory deprivation really mean? It's taking away some of your senses. So in the case of floating, how does it work? There are these alien bathtubs, basically, which you will enter, and then there's maybe this high of water, and it's filled with 1 ton of Epsom salt water. So you lay on it, and it has a higher salt density than the Dead Sea, so you float effortlessly on the surface. And then you close this tank, and then you don't have any noise in there. You don't have any sound, any noise. You also don't see usually any light in there, so it's taken away the sense of your eyes, it's taken away the sense of your hearing. And on top of that, because the salt density is so high, you basically just lay on a pillow of water. You don't feel any pressure points along your body, and also the water temperature is perfectly aligned with your body temperature, so it feels like you become one with the water. So even the sense and your identification of your body is taken away for the time of being in the float tank or being in the float bathtub, however you want to name it. And that's the power of it, because when you're there and these senses are taken away from you, that's when you faster realize who you really are and this other world that is there beyond your senses. And so although a float experience is maybe just 1 to 2 hours, it can still be a very profound experience. The last transpersonal modality I want to briefly introduce you today are dark rooms. And when I tell people that I spend many days in a pitch black dark room, people's reaction usually range from disbelief to why on earth would someone do this voluntarily? That it is one of the highest level practices to achieve self-realization and transpersonal states of consciousness, not many people really know. Again, this is nothing new. This is something that ancient cultures again did for thousands and thousands of years. In Egypt, they used the darkness of the pyramids. In Rome, they used the catacombs. And in Asia, in South America, and in almost all over the world, they used caves of the mountains or within the earth. Spending prolonged times in the darkness is considered a high-level transpersonal modality only for advanced practitioners. The reason is you can't escape in any way. There is nothing to distract yourself with, so you really have to face yourself in a very intense way. I told you before that the power of sensory deprivation in floating was that it takes away the senses. However, in floating, it's for maybe 1 or 2 hours at a time. In the dark room, it's maybe for 7, for 10, for 20 days that the most important sense in our today's world, which is our eyes, is taken away from us. And that is so intense because now you cannot distract yourself with anything anymore. You have to go inwards because it's the only thing you can do. Another interesting thing is that science found that after 3 to 4 days in pitch black darkness, DMT is synthesized in the brain in substantial amounts. And I can only tell you from my personal experience in the dark rooms, wow, this is very, very powerful. And I saw, or I reached so deep transpersonal states in the darkroom without ingesting anything at all. And I saw so much light in a place where there is supposed to be only darkness. So I could talk a lot more in detail about all these modalities, but in this video for me it was just to briefly introduce you what there is out there for you to experience. And I already recommend you to subscribe to my channel now if you haven't done that yet, because in the next few days and weeks I will upload an in-detail video about each and every one of those modalities. However, in this video I want to add 3 more tips for you on how to find the right transpersonal modality. The first tip is have the right intentions and the right mindset. All these transpersonal modalities I introduced to you, they are very, very powerful. And for thousands and thousands of years, they were only used for 2 things: to heal yourself, to transform yourself, and to achieve some form of self-realization. And this goes especially for plant medicine and psychedelics. The difference between getting drugged and having a deep transpersonal experience, again, is intention, having the right intention. So only use these modalities if your intentions are to face yourself, to heal, to transform, to grow, and to achieve some form of self-realization. Never use them, maybe apart from floating, for recreational reasons. This is not a trip to tell your friends about. And in all these ancient cultures and traditions, often these practices are one of the holiest things you can do. Usually they would only be done in a ceremonial setting, expressing the gratitude, expressing the holiness and the sacredness of it. And that's essentially what they are. They provide you a connection to the sacred, to the spiritual. So please treat them accordingly with the right intentions. The second tip I have for you, also make sure to check the teacher and the teachings. Your intentions need to be pure, but also the intentions of the shamans, of the healer, it needs to be equally pure. And many people go to South America, and only because someone looks like they are from there, it doesn't automatically make them a shaman. Be aware of that. The same goes for breathwork teachers. In my personal case, I'm doing a 3-year training. Before that, I learned for years breathwork of different tribes, and I see people doing a 1-month teacher training in breathwork and then going out there and facilitating workshops, and that can be very, very dangerous. So please make sure to find someone who knows what he or she is really doing, who can hold the space and who has the experience for that. So I recommend you to research it carefully, to look for different retreats, places, healers, to be curious, to check what are their experiences, and to ask many good questions. For example, is this work done for the right intentions, for the real inner healing purpose? What are the teachings based on? What is the experience of the teacher or of the healer? How authentic and original is this? Do they promote their ancient heritage and the wisdom of that? And what do they use the profits and their resources for? In the end, always trust your intuition. The third tip I have for you is make sure that integration is included. I see many people treating transpersonal experiences very wrong. They chase these highs, these divine moments from the transpersonal states of consciousness, and they go from ceremony to ceremony to get these ones back. But that's never how it's going to work. Again, all these modalities, they're very powerful, but they only show you glimpses. They only open the door a little bit to show you the light, to make you see what there is beyond what you think there is. And they also show you maybe how your life could be. But then it is always up to you. It is you who has to do the work. It is you who has to implement these divine moments and how your life could be into your everyday reality. Ayahuasca, plant medicine, psychedelics, breathwork, the Darkrooom, none of these modalities is going to do that for you. That's your job. You have to take the responsibility for that. And there's no point in chasing from one high of the ceremony to another. If you do that, it's just watching a movie. You just see all these different visions and different states of reality, but that's it. It's just a movie. So going into the darkroom or having an ayahuasca experience is one thing, but integrating the deep inner healing and all these life-changing things is another. Imagine yourself being maybe a few thousand kilometers away from your safety net, of your family, of your friends, of everything that supports you, and then you have these transpersonal states and suddenly your whole worldview is upside down and you're so vulnerable, and that's when integration becomes really, really important. So I can only recommend you always check and make sure that integration is an important part of the modality that you're doing. And how does it look like? What kind of integration tools do they offer? Do they include sharing circles, for example? Do they provide a safe environment? Do they have enough professional guidance for you to offer after you had this transpersonal state of consciousness? So these are my 3 tips for you, and it's also part of what my one-to-one coachings are all about. I help you to find the right modality, the right transpersonal modality that suits you, the right place to do it, the right teacher, and then I also help you to integrate what came up on your personal path and how to integrate that into your daily life. So if you're interested, reach out to me, check out my website. I also do one-on-one Skype coachings. However, what you can already do now is I will add a link in the first comment down below this video where I will link you to my website, and you can get their list of guides of all these transpersonal modalities. So you can read a guide about breathwork, about ayahuasca, about plant medicine, about consciousness lights, floating, and so on, and get more information about that, and even download checklists on what to take care for when you plan to do your first transpersonal experience. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and I wish you a beautiful day. Thanks.